that it means we are ready to hear from Glean, our first company of the day, our first sponsor of the day, and presenting for Glean today is Ryan Daller. Ryan is an enterprise solutions engineer, and we are going to bring him on right now. Hello, Ryan. How are you today?
Hey, doing well. It's nice to be here.
Hopefully your systems are working a little better than mine. You have a little bit better bandwidth, Ryan, and you're not running around with your hair on fire the way certain moderators are right now, because the tech issues seem to be widespread. Now, Ryan, I'm here from other people too, that they're having tech issues. I don't know if our audience is finding this as well, but enough of that. Hopefully you're doing okay. I'm going to see you on the other end for some Q&A, and I'm going to get your first slide up there. So Ryan, please take it away. I'll see you in a bit.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Yeah, I always say, with little things like technical difficulties, we always need AI to solve something like that, like my screen shares half the time. But I'm very excited to be with you guys today talking about Glean, specifically building, deploying, orchestrating, governing AI agents, right? I think agents is the big talk track lately. And at Glean, we're working on doing a bunch of these agentic deployments across customers. And we try to do this in a very democratized way. So we'll dive into the gist of this today. I've personally worked on about 50 different AI deployments, and it's quite a broad scale. Usually every single company that we are rolling out with, IT is the table stake use case. So very excited to dive into some of those with you all here today. Now, superintelligence is the name of the game lately. A lot of these model provider companies are aiming to bring superintelligence to the world. And the question is, how do you bring superintelligence into your enterprise? It's actually quite a bit different than just working with one of these consumer products. And when you're going about doing so, as mentioned on the previous chat here before I hopped on, it's really important to have your intention laid out and know exactly what you're aiming for when it comes to introducing this super intelligence to your enterprise. And the two lanes that we see enterprises do this successfully and focus on is, first and foremost, reimagining the customer experience, making sure that you can increase revenue through doing things like shipping and iterating on products faster. So a lot of times this has to do with engineering teams. Proactive support for those products is going to help you build that loyalty. And a lot of times that goes into IT and support. And then on the second half of the equation, which might be a little bit more relevant to our conversation here today, is creating an operational advantage. So how can we bring down the support costs for a platform, increase the internal support inside of IT, do back software updates and operational costs, and kind of decrease the impact of these things on an organization to decrease that operational expenditure. And a lot of this comes down to dollars per employee. When you introduce a super intelligent tool to your enterprise for a lot of users to use, whether it's IT, sales, support, you're thinking about how can you get more per employee by letting them do their processes more efficiently and making their day-to-day easier. So what does this look like tangibly with customer examples? Well, we have quite a few. As I mentioned, I personally worked on 50 different companies doing this. We're always very driven by identifying what metrics we're actually impacting. I think finding ROI when it comes to introducing AI to your enterprise is a huge thing that all companies need to really focus on. And some of these examples helps quantify exactly how we've done this with some of our customers. So most relevant probably to our IT conversation today is going to be Canva. We actually help them have a 70% deflection in their internal IT tickets. And it's things like this that are extremely impactful when you can present this back to your leadership team. And a big part of what we do at Glean is a very white glove process of not just helping you get your hands on the tool and utilize it with enablement, but also to quantify the impact that we're having as well. Another notable one to call out here, Uber, we help them realize approximately $200 million in annual productivity savings just by having Glean introduced to their engineering teams. And we can measure these through a slew of different variables. If you guys have metrics that you're measuring internally that maybe has to do with your success, such as the support ticket throughput and so forth, we'd love to work with you all to understand what success looks like and introduce what we're going to go through here today when we get to the product demo. Now, when it comes to actually embracing superintelligence, First and foremost, you need a platform. And we'll be talking about that, going through a little bit of a demo of Glean, how you can build out agents. But it's a whole nother conversation in terms of how to get employees working differently, right? Just because there's this super quick, flashy tool that helps, a lot of times employees have a little bit of a curve that they have to walk up in terms of adopting that tool. And then there's a parallel impact to departments working differently. And I think it's really important to call this out because a lot of leaders across organizations will start saying, hey, we're going to see these automatic impacts to our departments being optimized, having that throughput, immediately realizing these tangible impacts of 70% decrease in support tickets like Canva had in the previous slide. But there is a bit of a process to getting employees to walk up that curve and thereby impacting those departments. And just to talk about the different phases that we've identified in our workings with different customers, first and foremost, it starts with working faster. I think when you introduce a tool like Glean, which has agentic chat, can answer all questions, provided all of your enterprise context, you're automatically going to be able to work faster by getting answers quicker. But then you can start on the next run working smarter and then working different. And the difference here being working smarter is realizing, oh, I can go to chat for these questions. I don't have to wait on my coworkers to help me out. I don't have to wait on engineering to answer me for a response here because I was able to find a support ticket even faster. But then when you start to get to the working different category, this is when you're fundamentally thinking about how can I start implementing maybe an agent to do this activity for me or a part of the activity. And once you're at that kind of thinking, that's what we would define the working different category. Now you can start having AI work for you, which is quite literally not just taking agents to build out part of the workflows, but automating entire processes for yourself. And for example, right, like for myself, I'm a solutions engineer. I'm at the point where it's working for me and I've automated the complete process of doing stuff like RFPs. And when you have multiple people in the department spreading this knowledge, operating in this way, sharing best practices with each other, and working with somebody like Glean, who can be that enablement partner to help you get this synergy flowing through your organization, that's where you really get this transformation that becomes a super intelligent enterprise that is leveraging data and insights that Glean can provide, providing individual autonomy where you're not having to lean on a lot of other people, and getting to that speed that everybody's promising AI can provide at the end of the day. Now, how do we go about doing this, right? A lot of people make promises with agentic tooling and they'll start with flashy workflows. Some are just chatbots that say, hey, we'll answer all of your questions, but it's actually more fundamental than that. And that's where we as Glean started with enterprise search. And I think this is a really important thing to call out because a big buzzword with agentic AI in general is context, right? Context is key. Context engineering specifically. And what Glean Search does is provide this context for you by connecting to all of your data systems. We have pre-built connectors for over 100 plus SaaS data sources. We'll ingest content, activity signals, different metrics such as who's editing, who's viewing the document, the activity coming in from these sources. And we'll pull this together and synthesize it into an enterprise graph. So this graph is what's built on top of search. And we can thereby provide all of these connections between your data, your customers, your processes, your projects. And we're essentially linking these things together to provide not just the factual details, but how these things are connected. So there is an enterprise graph that will do things like looking at, hey, when you're asking this question, are you a part of the support organization? What team within that support organization are you on? What are those people you're working with looking at most frequently? And there's also a personal graph beyond just that enterprise graph that's saying, what projects have you been working on? Have you worked on any other tickets this week for this customer that might be relevant? Do you have any Slack conversations that are related to this as well? And a lot of these connections are pulled out through some complex machine learning that we're doing under the hood to build out a synthesis machine inside of the graph that we're providing that really bolsters search and provides this context to agents in a different way than most other solutions are doing. Because if you don't have this contextual engine, we call it a system of context, at the end of the day, you're really not going to have great agents because they're not pulling on great information in the first place. So the knowledge graph is key. And then we combine this with other parts of the Glean product to provide a best-in-class AI agentic solution. As you can see, the middle bar here, Glean Search, it has a knowledge graph in our AI-powered hybrid search with a self-learning language model, again, pulling out more context, understanding synonyms, the way your organization talks about things. And we're layering this on top of Glean Protect. So it's one thing to have this contextual understanding of your org, but it's another thing to be able to do it in a secure manner. So we have sensitive content protection where you can actually scan for sensitive information and maybe remove it from the index. We're also doing permissions aware management of every single query that hits the system. So you'll never be able to search or chat with any kind of information that you don't already have access to at the source. And we're also providing AI security tools that are looking for things such as prompt injection and more. And really, at the end of the day, this foundation is what's going to provide the base for Glean agents in the products that we provide to end users at the very top of the page here. So on the left, oh, and I'm seeing in a comment, did you try going full screen? Just want to double check. Can everybody see this here? Okay. Awesome. We're getting a no. I'll say, Keith, if there's anything we can do to make the typing larger, let me know here. I'll continue on. I hope it gets a little bit better when we get to the demo. But on the very top of the screen here, we do have our different products inside of Glean. You can see on the very left, we have Glean Assistant. This is essentially going to be a chatbot. Think of it as a chief of staff, essentially, for yourself. It can answer all questions, provide all context, and more. And beyond that, we have Glean Agents, which are ways for you to really direct the power of Glean into specific workflows that are very accessible for anybody across the company. Now, you could build these out, as you'll see in our demo here once we get to it, in a very smooth interface that is accessible to users who are non-technical. And I think this is a big part of Glean, is being able to provide a experience for users who essentially can access this in a very democratized manner and not have to be siloed off to your technical folk, which at the end of the day, from an IT perspective, would burden you all with the capability of having to build out agents for every single user across all different departments. And then last but not least, we do have that lower level if you do want to empower your developers to build out very deep, complex system workflows utilizing Glean APIs. This is great because now you can use the power of that enterprise graph, the system of context that we built out within other agents that you may be building proactively with other tooling that you have. And last thing before we leave this slide, Glean is really meant to be a horizontal platform, a platform that gives you the basis of the context building that you'll need for other agents that you might utilize. We by no means see ourselves as the exclusive owner of all of your agentic workflows. We want to provide the most important thing to your agents wherever you build them, which is the context of your enterprise data. And we also happen to provide a great interface for this as well. Now, before we dive into the demo, Glean agents can drive these business outcomes in every department. Obviously, IT is going to be a huge part of our conversation today. So think about optimizing your support efficiency, accelerating business innovation, reducing time to proficiency, so how fast people get onboarded, and then reducing the total cost of ownership of AI and other products that you have internally. So I like to flash this up on the screen just so that you all are aware of the different things that you could drive and focus towards. And it is important to have an idea of what you're trying to accomplish, and then we can translate that into AI successfully. Now, this is where we will switch to a demo, and I will go ahead and share my screen here. Give me one moment. Now, what everyone is seeing right now is the Glean UI. It is a web browser plugin, so very easily accessible, and it is a signed-in experience because, again, we are taking into account who the user is whenever a query is taking place, and this allows us to then map it back into that context and provide very personalized results for every user. Now, you could see I'm even getting suggestions based off of Glean's understanding of myself of what I could do to respond to different activities that I have in my task list. Cool call out. This is not created by me. This is Glean automatically looking through all of my data and saying, hey, this may be important and you want to follow up. And 9 times out of 10, this is usually very spot on. And it's actually where I go to track what I need to do day to day. You'll also see a bunch of suggestions. You can see we're celebrating different people this week and their 1-year anniversary. So I like to call out that this is a great landing spot for the homepage. And we can also go between search and chat so that it's a very seamless experience for your enterprise. Now, inside of chat, really quickly, I'll ask a question such as, how can I get a new laptop? And when I click enter, we're going to be taken into the Glean chat interface, and we'll see a couple things down at the bottom. We can have a fast response or a thinking mode. If I switch to thinking, it's going to use much more reasoning to get to the bottom of the response. And a lot of times this will synthesize even more data, execute multiple searches on my behalf and more. There's also the capability to turn on a web search so that it could use external and internal knowledge. And I could even filter to specific data sources. So maybe I want to go to, let's say, Service Cloud explicitly and only chat with that because I know that's a secure source of truth. Or maybe I just want it to search across everything that's connected to Glean. Either way, this works very seamlessly. You can also do things like attaching a file, tag people or documents if you want to talk about a specific one. And we're also going into a canvas mode where we can essentially create documents out of the responses very seamlessly and edit them inside of the Glean interface. Now, we'll see this is executing a search for me. And if I were to click into this search, it's going to take me and show me what the different search results are that get utilized for the response. You can see how do I get a new laptop is first and foremost at the very top, as well as some ticket requests inside of Jira. And if we go back into the screen, I'll show you the response I've gotten, which is essentially showing work. Again, these are going to be those 20 or so results under the hood. And then it's going to tell me here's the quickest path to get a new laptop at work. It's going to cite the different sources. As you can see, this was the first one in the search results. And then it's also going to even recommend at the bottom, hey, based on your query, you might find this agent useful. So if you do have a service desk agent, for example, that is going to help you go and get a new laptop, you could automatically trigger that from here as well. This is a great feature because as your organization builds out a bunch of different agents, you can then go and start leveraging them directly by having them recommended. And we are releasing a feature where you can approve certain agents to be essentially your enterprise agents that get delegated to from chat directly, as you see here. Now, I really want to double click on what these agents are and how you can build them out. What does that workflow look like, especially for IT, since there are a ton of different use cases here. So we will dive into an example of an agent. And the first one that is very useful across our organization is intelligent reminders. This is our demo version. Now, if I go into the agent setup, I can show you the different steps that it will execute whenever I click run. And we can see here, it is a very seamless workflow builder. You can start from scratch and be able to go 1, 2, 3, keep adding these steps. But what's great is we actually have a new panel where you can build these through natural language. So if you want to build an agent and you're starting from scratch, you could just start describing what you want it to build, the steps that you want it to take. And I could even tell it something like, hey, this first step is a company search. Change step 1 to a company search of just Slack, for example. And then it would go and change this for me. So you can see we're trying to make the creation of agents very accessible. And I'll tell you from firsthand experience that I've worked with many non-technical folks, even like sales teams and finance departments, where they can build these out themselves as well. And you do have the capability to get pretty complex with them, as you'll see in a second here. Now, First and foremost, we'll walk through the different steps at a high level, and then I'll dive into a few of the different tools we're using. You can see the purpose of this agent, if you wanted to read about it, is going to be outlined in a note here, and this could be edited, customized. Think of it as commenting and adding some details about your agent. And what this one will take us through is essentially giving us reminders on our day, what we need to do, read through all the calls I've been a part of, read through all the messages that have been sent to me, the emails and so forth, and then compile a very concise report based off of exactly what our team finds most useful. It's going to trigger, as you saw in the preview, by just clicking Run Agent. There are a couple different ways I could trigger an agent here. I could actually make it a chat message so that it's open-ended. Maybe I want to make it content-based so that it triggers based off of an updated ticket, right? So there are a lot of different options here. We could even do an input form if I wanted a person to add a specific field, and you'll see that in the second agent that we're going through today. But I'm going to leave it at this trigger, and we will go through the different steps now. So step one is going to be after a user clicks the button, it's going to do a company search, look through everything from me over the past day, everything in Jira from me in the past day, everything in Gmail, Google Calendar, anything that mentions me in the past day. And it's also going to look inside of my Slacks. And what's great here is you can get very specific, right? Sure, you could go into Glean chat and say, hey, give me an update on everything that's happened today. And that could do a good job and give you a nice overall summary. But the power of agents is that you can now take into control and replicate this for many users and say, this is exactly what I want it to do. Instead of the agent inside of Glean chat taking proactive steps for you, you now have a lot more control and have some guardrails in guiding this agent along the way. The second step after this search is going to be read any of the call transcripts completely. So we have what's called a read document step. It's going to go through all of the chats and messages and calls in the previous step and make sure that it searches through those things. Then it's going to go and read personal activity. This is using part of that graph that we talked about previously. So it's understanding of myself, what I've been doing, where I've been in the past day or so. And you can see we can set this to a different period, different time, and we can even do things at every single step, such as change the large language model that is being used. This is a great feature, especially relevant in responses. And we could do this at every single step so that it's using maybe a different model per step. You can see we're supporting all things from Claude to Llama models to GPT models, and we even have Gemini as well. So the idea with Glean is your organization can make whatever models available inside of Glean that you guys choose. We do provide a key so that you can access these models through Glean in a very private and secure way. There's no keeping track of your data from the LLM side. And at that, you have this flexibility to really build out workflows that cross different models. After reading personal activity, we're going to coach the agent to think about all of the information that was pulled in, and we're going to tell it to create more context and a better picture of the use that the user is going through. Now, again, this really demonstrates how you can pull in all of this context, all of this activity, and then synthesize it using Glean. After thinking about this context that we pulled in, then we might want it to actually respond. And this is where your prompt engineering comes into play. You can coach it exactly who the agent is. You're a brilliant personal assistant tasked with helping me identify open action items from my calls, conversations, and so forth. The more context you provide here, the better. And what's great is we do have a whole slew of examples that you can leverage when you get the Glean platform that has a lot of this already embedded inside of it for you to use out of the box. After responding, we can even do things like add actions inside of other platforms. So as you can see, this agent is going to walk through each step, respond, and then it's going to send a Slack message to myself with all of the content from the previous response. And just showing you guys the different tools that are available if I were to add another step. We could do things like company search, think, respond, plan and execute. You can use that enterprise graph data. But then what's great is we have a bunch of pre-built actions per data source. And as you can see here, you can start adding the capability to maybe create a new Google Doc, draft an email, or maybe there's something in Salesforce that you want to update, or go to Jira and create a Jira issue or create a new ticket. These are all different steps that can be done directly from within the Glean platform. And it really opens up that capability for your users to start building out workflows that turn you into that super intelligent organization that everybody's striving to be today. Now, I will take some time to just show you quickly this create a KB article from a ticket. We could drop a ticket in place, click go, and then the agent can walk through and decide, hey, does this ticket have documentation on it already? If so, we're going to take one path. If not, we're going to take another path and go and create the documentation that's needed for that user. And at the end of this, what it all looks like if I were to run this agent, you can see I drop in a specific ticket. It's going to walk through each of the steps and I can track its process as it's going through these steps. It's going to say, hey, the reviewed documents don't provide enough information. Maybe we should create some documentation for this ticket. Here are the gaps in documentation. Here's the recommendations of what we should add. And here is the document that we created for you that has all of the updated documentation of how to resolve the support ticket. And really, that is the gist of the demo here today. We will open the floor for some questions. And I also did want to call out that we will be dropping in the documents here our Gartner report. Gartner did nominate us for being a technical innovator for agentic AI, and there are some great details inside of there. But I'm hoping you guys would book a demo with us. Looking forward to maybe meeting some of you in person and walking through how Glean can help your organization.
Absolutely. Ryan, great presentation today. I love seeing how that works. And I imagine a lot of folks watching were envisioning how much more efficient it can make their operations. A lot of those things are the kind of stuff that you got to do, but you don't really need to devote a lot of manpower to. And if you can use your solution, well, that frees your team up to do, more bottom line focus kinds of things, so just great stuff here. Now, unfortunately, Ryan, you had so much good information that we have run out of time for questions. I want to point out, though, a couple of things before we let you go. The poll is up for Glean, and I want everyone to go vote in that. And we do have the Glean doc over in the doc section, as Ryan mentioned, so please go check that out. And Ryan, I'm sure that you and the Glean team are going to follow up with the questions that did get asked that we were not able to get to today. So if you did ask a question for Ryan and the Glean team, have no fear, you will be hearing from them as well. Ryan, it was an absolute delight to have you on. What a great way to kick off our event today. And thank you for educating us on what Glean is doing in the area of agentic AI. Fascinating to see. Thanks again.
Awesome. Thanks, Keith. Nice talking with you.
Absolutely. Yep.